What's up, guys? This is Matt Ramsey with the Octave Higher East Voice Studio in Austin, Texas, and this is Octave Higher TV, episode 15. And look, guys, I so appreciate your questions. Every view that we get on YouTube is like a little fairy kissing me on the cheek. It feels so good, and I really just appreciate that so many people are responding to this, and so many people are asking great questions, and so many people are learning from it. And I'm looking always to get more feedback. So if you wouldn't mind, take a second, just subscribe to it. It should be right here at the top of the screen. It's a really easy thing to do so that you can always be getting these updates. Now, we've got a fantastic question of the week right now. Paula Starch asks, what is muscle memory? I think this is a fantastic question. Can't wait to talk about it. Let's get started. Well, guys, the question, what is muscle memory, I think has been kind of like intuitively answered over the last, 30 or 40 years. For a long time, there were a lot of people that kind of came up with this idea of muscle memory, and you just do something enough times and it's gonna improve and it's gonna get better. But it wasn't until about the 1980s that there were some scientific studies that were done, and this was done in Germany on some rats that basically. There was one group of rats that they kind of just raised in cardboard boxes, and they lived sad little rat lives. And then there was another group of rats that they raised in kind of like a playpen almost, with a bunch of Tonka trucks and a bunch of other fun stuff for them to play around with. Now, when these rats died and they autopsied them and they cut open their brains to take a look at the white matter in their brains, they found that the group that was playing with these Tonka trucks and all these toys and stuff, the white matter in their brains had increased by 25%. Okay, now at the time, it was kind of almost like a misnomer study, because they were like, okay, well, obviously the more neurons or the more nerve cells you have in your brain, obviously, the better you're going to be at something, or the smarter you are, or, name whatever extreme you want. You're just going to be awesome. You're going to be great. It's all about the number of neurons. Well, they didn't take into account, I guess they took into account, but they didn't see the value yet in another discovery that also increased by 25%, and that was myelin. Okay, and that's Myelin. And I was not a spelling bee champion, so that was kind of nerve-wracking for me. But basically, myelin, if you think about a nerve is kind of like a wire, and I've got an Ethernet cable right here as kind of a good example. Now, inside of this Ethernet cable, there's a ton of different wires, right? There's a lot of different wires that are all supposed to carry a signal. Now, if you look at a nerve cell, like a neuron, that's in your brain in the exact same way, it's basically the same. You've got a ton of electrical impulses that are traveling down this one wire. Okay, now if I were to cut this Ethernet cable in half, then you would see on the inside that there's a bunch of different wires. However, on the outside, you'll notice that it's coated in a little bit of this yellow rubber here. Okay, now the yellow rubber is the equivalent of myelin in your own nerve cells. Okay, so myelin is actually a phospholipid. It's a fat. It's like a fat that is wrapping around these electrical circuits, basically. So if you think of like every nerve as a wire, if there's no insulation to it, then you're going to have a really kind of crappy charge. That electrical impulse isn't going to be sent very well. However, if you've got a really thick kind of rubber coating on the outside of it, and it's kind of wrapping in layers on the outside of it, that signal is going to get faster and it's going to get stronger, because that electrical impulse isn't getting lost kind of, as a bare wire would, so if this wasn't wrapped, maybe my internet connection would be so much slower, because, it's getting all sorts of interference and lots of the signal is leaking. However, you wrap it in this rubber and all of a sudden it's great. Now, myelin works exactly the same way. So it's not so much to do with the number of neurons that you have that makes you better at something. It has to do with how much of the myelin or how much of the wrapping that you have around this specific neural circuit. So for instance, I work a whole lot with my students on getting, on my male tenor students, for example, on getting to this high C. Okay, so in order to do that, there's not just one neural circuit that's just going straight to that high C. Okay, this is how I hit a high C. There's actually so many different things. There is the neural circuit that controls how much my cricothyroid is stretching out the vocal folds. There is another neural circuit that has to do with how much my thyroid is allowing the vocal folds to close in the back and allow for some medial compression so that they're able to thicken. I know we haven't gone into all this stuff yet, but this is, kind of whatever cool sciencey stuff that I like to think about. There's another neural circuit that has to do with the breath that you have to take. Another neural circuit that tells me to move my lips and say mum, mum. So there's a lot of different things going on. So it's not just like there's one mum, 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 mum. There's not just like one high C, neural circuit. It's a whole lot of different things happening. Now, what's really cool about that is there's a lot of things that can go kind of wrong with that. So if you've got all these different things happening and they all need this, and they're all kind of like bare wires when you're first starting out, maybe you're doing it kind of, okay, so we start to work on that. Okay, give me a nay, 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 nay. So that's telling you all these different neural circuits. Okay, this is what it's like to get the vocal folds closed again. Okay, so that gets some wrapping. And then, the lips get some wrapping. And then all these little different neural circuits are kind of all building up to one specific outcome, which is that you're able to sing that high C easier and easier and easier each time. Which brings us to the second really cool thing about myelin, which is that as you get this muscle memory, which is nothing to do with the muscles, The muscles are just like the puppet without the strings. What's controlling them? The neurons. So it's all about the neurons and all about the myelin wrapping around them. The second cool thing about that is the more you hit this the more you hit this high C, the easier it becomes, the more unconscious it becomes. Now, this is kind of like an evolutionary trick that has happened because, as primordial cavemen, we had to be really, really alert all the time and always see that saber-toothed tiger, that was coming for us or something like that. So we didn't think about how easy it became to throw that spear after a while, or to hit that high C, or to swing that golf club, because it's in our mind's best interest to allow us to be alert and not to use up so much bandwidth by always thinking about mom, 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 every single time. That last one was terrible, by the way. But every single time, it just gets easier and easier and easier, and your mind is allowed to think about more and more things and become more alert about other things. So I think that that's a really, really cool kind of trick. So you see a lot of people who are just like, they sing so effortlessly. It's like, oh my God, I hate that guy because I'm so jealous. He's so good, he's so good at singing that high note. It's not necessarily that, he is even having such a difficult time with it. It's just, he's kind of forgotten how much he struggled in the beginning in order to get that note and how many things had to happen. But now that he's got it, it's like becomes so unconscious. He's able to make it look so natural. He or she, excuse me. Now, I'm really looking forward to, to working on this with some students because this takes time. It doesn't take a whole lot of time to build that one circuit and just fire it once. It takes a lot of time, a lot of practice, a lot of myelin wrapping around these specific neural circuits in order for them to, get to the level that we're really looking forward to. So you really have to be passionate about this. You have to love singing. You have to be crazy about it because this whole idea of firing the neural circuit enough times to get good at it so that it becomes unconscious takes a long, long time. And for some of you, maybe that's an unfortunate truth. But on the other hand, if you really love it, it's going to take some time. And you just have to devote that time. You got to practice. You got to get it to that place where it's just ready to go anytime. You can wake up in the middle of the night and you can sing it. Now, I hope that this answers your question, Paula. Let me know if you have any more questions that were simulated by this one episode. I really, really have a great time talking about this. And I'm really looking forward to doing some more first-time neural circuit firings this weekend. We're doing vocal technique for all workshop. I am presenting a vocal technique for all workshop this weekend, Sunday, February 28th at the Hideout Theater at 5 p.m. It's only $5. I'm doing it as a donation. That $5 goes to keeping the theater open and doing lots of great stuff that they do there. So if you have a moment, go ahead and register for it. I'm going to include the link at the bottom of this video. And have a great week, guys. Bye.